Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Friday, October the 26th, 2018. And I'm back again with my gal pals, my posse, Beezy Rieger and Lisa Flamino Rush. Good evening, ladies.
Hello.
So, after much discussion, I think we've decided to talk about, mostly because of me, I think. Do you choose to view clarity in resounding silence or crescendos of distortion? Because I'd like to have a little clarity on exactly what you mean by this.
Well, look around would be the first point of clarity. And what do you feel into, notice, sense, and see in your own right in front of you, direct interpretation of that, and all sorts of other channels that may be coming in from that, whether it's other people giving voice different things or literal channels of communication, which can be linear, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, blogs, all sorts of different multimedia, multidimensional things, and also your own inner channels. And it would be a pale description to say that things are getting kicked up, a wee bit and a couple notches. And so how we perceive that, how we see that, how we could look around and see, the water that we're swimming in, the pool that we're hanging out in, can be, not only is, but we can choose what the pool is, and there pretty much are two predominant choices: resounding silence. So that word came in very intentionally. So if you think about resounding silence, and okay, I'll pull them up there. Apparently there's the way that it's phrased in one dictionary here. So resounding silence would be one of them, and the other one is in a crescendos, plural, of chaos.
The word distortion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, originally you used the word distortion.
Distortion.
I'm sorry, what did I say? What did I just say now?
You said chaos.
Yeah. Well, it is. Well, I mean, chaos would be the linear kind of visual that comes to mind, but it's distortion. And the reason that it's distortion is because it's the distortion of your energetic frequency fields.
And I think I asked for clarity based on, well, I mean, we've had a bit of a conversation this evening before we actually started recording, so the two of you are aware. And I feel very odd, feel very strange. I've been, integrating some things, having some things present, and so, and I am getting some clarity on things. But with this, do you choose to view clarity in resounding silence or crescendos of distortion? It, of course, because of what I'm integrating and what I'm, or looking at, I'll say, because I don't know that I'm integrating it yet, but it's at least come up for review for me personally. I'm looking at this and then I'm applying this, and I'm asking myself the question, well, so what I wanted to be sure I understood what you meant in regards to resounding silence or crescendos of distortion. Because I on one hand I feel like I am trying to be more quiet. That's tough for me in my, because my brain is constantly going. That's actually why I kind of brought that up, because I don't, there's a, the odd feeling that I have, I get a little confused. Is that part of that crescendos of distortion? I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm a bit confused.
Okay, well, I'll start with the second one first. So, and I'll go try to perhaps elucidate a little bit more clarity around the distortion part that might be helpful for all with that. So yes, people are more familiar with the idea of chaos. Hey, just look out there anywhere.
Yep.
There's bucket loads to it, right? Distortion. Okay, I'm not just to do this. So distortion, the way that I'm bringing it up, it relates to frequency and your frequency as an energetic being.
Yeah, and then when I feel into that right now, I do feel very distorted energetically.
And so the distortion, the action of giving a misleading account or impression. So that's actually it's not what this is for, but it's very apt on helping people see. So your energetic frequency, when you have confusion, when you have the feeling of, or you're mostly picking up chaos, or there's fear, all of those are distortions. Read the action of giving a misleading account or impression of who you are, of the clarity.
I'm telling you, my phone has a superpower.
Of the clarity of the resonance, vibrational field and frequency of the being of who you are. Mm-hmm. So that signal that your being transmits, conveys, and uses as a platform for interaction. So distortion is a helpful, it's a helpful tool, it's a helpful word to kind of use in how you're just like integrating and that kind of thing. It's to help you use as a step or a reminder, kind of a touchstone. It's also a helpful guidepost to realizing that when you feel something, that you said you were feeling a little unsettled, and you're feeling a little kind of adrift, and you're, those kinds of things, and people can look at you and see that as well, because it's translating that as well. And so those are what people are seeing, and what Sheila is feeling, because she's more feeling it rather than looking, in the video screen of herself. Where those distortions are what I would describe as highlighting for one to look at. So that takes it back to the title of, are you choosing your point of clarity? Well, do you choose? So do you choose to view clarity through resounding silence or the crescendos of distortion? And both are perfectly delicious. And if you're not actively choosing because you're not consciously aware of it, or become aware of it and then set the intention to choose, because of the energies and how well you've built up your muscles for focus and attention and recognizing different things, the default will be to go to the crescendos of distortion because they're really obvious. And you don't have to do a lot of work to get in to drift down the river in that pool because they're so loud right now. And they're if you think about crescendos and a symphony, the cymbals boom boom boom, well, you got that, maybe a bit more than half of the beings on the planet are in that vein over that way. So was that helpful? And do you want me to move over to the other one and then we'll play forward, or how do you want me to go?
No, that was helpful. I mean, I do think it was helpful. I think maybe I'm trying to apply this to what I've got going on, and perhaps it doesn't necessarily. That might be part of it. For me.
Well, you said you were trying to be quiet,
mm-hmm.
right? And feel and listen more. And so the resounding silence, and the reason I feel that it came through that way, so people think of silence as being silent, still, a kind of a quiet, tamped down, and that's so on a lot of levels. But when we're talking about here, because we're at the point now where we're not walking slow anymore, and we're on this juggernaut of transformation, of throwing off the veils, throwing off the spittle of confusion and all that kind of stuff, and so the quality of the silence in toto, and then if you're using this as a tool and a choice point, I don't know how to say it any other way to be really clear, but it's quite resounding. So it has a real resonance to it, and it has a vibrational, these don't go together, but palpation to it. It's more of a feeling way. So, okay, there's, you ever heard like a kettle drum, right? Which has that, you hear the sound that the kettle drum makes, and then the whole drum kind of has a bit of a reverb to it. So right. If I go like this and go like this, that's mimicking without any in silence, right? What a kettle drum does.
Right.
Okay. So that's kind of a good metaphor for, we think silence as being silent. And right now there's resounding silence. So you hear the silence in every fiber of your being. Is that starting to conjure a picture?
Yeah, it does.
See the silence in every facet of your visual acuity on all different levels. So it could be, it's your linear eyes, it's kind of your sensory kind of you know, you might describe, if you, like, I can see, I'm not looking anywhere at the camera, so I can't see reflection, but I can see out of my peripheral vision, my hand moving back here. So because I can see quite a lot, and more I can see in a bigger, wider field. So, and you're also in your third eye is seeing that silence and the colors of it. And brings to mind, we had a conversation a while back, December, January, where we were doing a little kind of exercise, and in Sheila's part, when she was closing her eyes and what she was describing, what she was seeing, she gave this very quite detailed description of what she was seeing, and then a few moments after, they said, but I didn't see anything, right? Just describe chapter and verse what you saw, but I didn't see anything. So in that sense, the seeing was coming from other aspects and abilities within you that was not in these eyes or this eye. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
That's what I say, where that there's a resonance to the way that you see the silence. And in that silence and in the resoundingness of the silence, one of the reasons that's a terrific tool to get clarity is because it's actually like taking energetic microfiber cloths and polishing up all of those other senses. You know, your 5 senses, your 6th sense, your 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 52 million senses, right? Even though you're not sure what they are, but that's a polishing cloth, special, you know, quantum polishing cloth for all of those. And when you do that, heretofore you're discovering all these things, you know, you didn't even know that you were there. I mean, one of the kind of the jokes, if you go riding, if you've never been riding a horse before, you go riding, you discover muscles you never knew that you had, no matter how much, you know, anatomy that you studied, kind of a thing. So this is, although in a more comfortable way, this is the same kind of a thing. You know, you're discovering those things because, you know, if you look at the lines in your hand, right, you know, if you just look, there's a hand and there's skin, okay. Then if you look at it, you can see that there's lines. And if you could look beneath the skin, you could see all the bones. And in your hand and your feet, you have tremendous a number of bones for the size that the appendage takes up, you know, as opposed to your arm, which takes up more room. It's got a lot less bones. And so what I'm saying is the same, using that as, again, as a metaphor. In that resounding silence, you realize that there isn't just one sense here, but it actually, you're seeing the tool for what it is, and you were kind of looking at it that I can't think of an analogy here, but you were looking at it in a way that it was seen to be representing one thing that was about this shape, and now that you're looking at it, you can see, no, that's actually 50 or hundreds bundled together that at the right or wrong angle, it seems like it's one, you know, pillar in a garage, and then you come around the side a little bit and you go, no, that's X number of columns. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's one point of choice, or the other is the distortion, because that's less nuanced and doesn't require any kind of finesse, because it comes right upside and finesses you. And since that's a predominant groove that so many beings are in right now, it kind of has got its own reverb going of distortion.
Okay, that does help me quite a bit, because I was when you first started talking about it, I was like, well, wait a minute, I was trying to apply distortion to what I've got going on here because I feel so distorted. Um, but actually, I haven't been really hanging out in that frequential neighborhood at all. It's been, I'm hanging quiet. I'm just looking for the silence part. Either one of those, I would think, would be fine to go through as long as one is making sure to ask themselves questions along the way. I would think, because
Well, make no mistake about it. You're going through one or the other
right
now.
I guess
Your choice is which one. It's not 1, 2, or something else.
right. I gotcha. I guess what I was getting at was that because you're right, there's a lot of folks that are in that groove, and and no judgment about that. That's certainly a way to go, and it's a valid way.
Well, it's a really helpful way. I mean, make no mistake about it. It's a very helpful way. It's a different path, different scenery, different landscape, but it's incredibly valuable and helpful. It can be jarring, it can be bumpy, it can be disconcerting, it can have a sense of malaise and chagrin and melancholy and all those kind of things as well, because it's I just got a vision of doing it, and I'd like to not keep doing it. Thank you very much. Where you're in a car ride and it's swinging by, and all of a sudden your stomach's upset, and you're looking out the window going, so that does not in any way diminish its value, but they're just this came forward as something to play with, because it's you can jump from one track to the other.
Yeah, I could see where that would be easy enough to do too.
So if you go ahead, Lisa.
Well, just by spending time noticing, because that's what I'm really focused on now, is just noticing what in the hell I'm doing all the time. Because I wasn't spending enough time knowing what I was doing all the time. But in noticing that, I am really seeing when I've jumped off, and when I'm really in my heart, and I'm in that open space. It's almost like a surrendering and allowing, if you will. And I like that you're saying resounding silence, because it is the silence that's deafening, if you will.
Absolutely.
It's so full, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
That you can't pick out one certain thing at all. So I don't know. For me, I'm just, sometimes I would feel lost a little in the largeness of the silence. But so for me, I'm really starting to feel a surrendering to it, meaning to allow it to be who and what I am. And that is a delicious little ride I'm enjoying at the moment. So I don't stay there as long as I'd like to. So noticing when I'm there and when I'm not is helping me, because there are things that take me to the silence, and there are things that, throw me into the distortion. So it's good to know what those are if you want to control your ride.
Yeah. Well, and another way too that I might phrase it is navigate my flow.
There you go.
In the way that is, it's almost like that, I can, okay, that's interesting. So if I'm driving a race car, heretofore in this lifetime, I don't believe I have, but okay. Maybe a New Yorker with a lead foot, but if I'm driving a race car, I'm going to accelerate into the turns and then ease off the gas at so that force brings me around through. And so you could look at it where you might use the trajectory of the particular crescendo or a series of crescendos of distortion as your acceleration. And then you, as you come, this is a picture that's coming, you come back around the outside, so you're kind of curving up a little higher on the track of the racetrack. And now you decide to change lanes into the resounding silence, because yes, I think too, maybe some of the confusion is that we sometimes conjure silence as being passive.
Right.
And it's not.
No.
You know, it is quite active, and there's a lot of work, you know, in either one you're doing, and the qualities of perceived, you know, being a little bit more enjoyable and and pleasurable, as in, you know, not feeling like you're gonna barf.
Right.
You know, you might be in
orgasmic ride.
you might be in the lane of, you know, of the resounding silence. But as you said, Lisa, too, you know, it can be overwhelming sometimes, because so how did I explain this? Well, just like we're remembering and discovering for the first time how to feel, truly feel, and truly connect to feeling. So feeling deeply, and all of whatever feeling that is that we're feeling. Even in moments where we think we're in silence and in tune with the silence, so reverberating with the silence, right? It still hasn't really been the frequency of silence. So hold that thought for a minute. So just like you have the frequency of love, of universal love, of love, which is the actual frequency of love, instead of this label naming of love, and which has, you know, this groove and that groove, and, you know, there's platonic love and blah blah blah, blah.
Right.
So kind of linear love, right? And Sheila can describe this, you know, standing on the edge of forever. When you stand, or at least touch, or at least kind of get a whiff of the true frequency of love coming by, it's unmistakable, and you may not quite know what it is, but it's like whoa. In silence, the resounding nature of it is very similar. That's a good metaphor to use for that. And so we haven't been, it's very hard to use linear words to describe this, because it's a knowing, a sensing, and a feeling thing, but we haven't actually, for any sustained amounts of times, felt and heard the silence.
Right. No.
Oh, no, we did once just recently here.
We were,
Very brief.
We had this conversation today.
Yeah, we did.
Sheila and I, about the silence. Because, well, to make a long story short, I was getting information about some things I was picking up on, and having conversation with my greater being about what is happening, because I was really feeling it. And I got that, you know, so there are machines of disruption frequency that, you know, are cranked to the maximum, and I was really feeling it and asking about that. And what I got was, you can't just turn them off. That's not how this works. And then I was shown in a memory, in a reel, of what was shown to me about. I had a bout or two of the resounding silence you speak of, and I was thrown into it quite unawares. I don't know. It was an experience that I recall, that I carry with me. And I called it the deafening silence.
Yeah.
Because that's how it was experienced by me at the time. And so Sheila brought up having that experience. And I said, oh, I know exactly what you speak of. Although at the time that she would have experienced it, I was sleeping. I did it just right away. I think I just fell through the bed, right down into the pleroma, and was very busy. So I missed it. But I know what you speak of, and it's a very particular thing. And so they reminded me that the deafening silence would not be a good thing for this stage. And so I could see the wisdom they were describing, in that we dial it back gradually so that one doesn't lose their sanity. But anyway, how interesting that we had that conversation today. And what you said about the active and passive, well, I was calling it surrender, but I wrote about that today, as my guidance was explaining some topics to me that came through. So how interesting that we're all on the same page. I almost can't even stand it. It's so wonderful. It hurts just a little bit.
Well, and as I was telling you guys, because this all came in yesterday, and I sent the new list to you around early my time. So this was a precog, touching up to the linear.
I know, I get that now. I really Thank you.
So does that help as a good starting point for you, Sheila?
Oh yeah, no, it helped a lot, because I was equating my my unsettled in my being, my all of this with distortion, and that's not the case at all, and that's not what you're meaning here. I was assigning it something completely different. I do understand what you mean now in regards to the crescendos of distortion. And it does not apply in this particular case for me, because it's probably not an apt description to describe what I'm feeling as distortion, although I was trying to describe it or think of it in that particular manner, and it's not.
Well, unsettling, the feeling of being unsettled, is a distortion of your true vibrational frequency.
True, and that's why I said that applies, yes, but I'm not choosing to view the clarity through crescendos of distortion, which is what I'm saying here. Yes, I feel distorted. My being feels distorted in a way. The frequency, I will apply that. Yes, it definitely does. I'm not choosing to view clarity or any of this through that sort of distortion. I'm not choosing that. I feel that unsettled part, I'm choosing to view it through resounding silence. I'm viewing it just as it practicing.
So that's actually great, because and that's what the unsettling is, because we're until we start to play in the resounding silence, just like, remember, I can point to a couple places on camera because I got them right on camera, right? The first moment you had standing on the edge of forever,
Mm-hmm.
There was a quiver, it was a little, it was like awestruck, and it was holy shit, and, a combination of things all together, right?
Right.
So this unsettlingness, you would get that as you start to meet, glance at, start to walk down the resounding silence, because it's so, I'm not sure this is apt, but it's come around 3 times. So what the hell? I don't even remember the name of the movie, but there's a, actually it has Ben Affleck and who's the guy, you know, they always hang out together. They've done a bunch of
Matt
movies.
Damon.
There you go. And God,
She's going there. She's going right there, Lisa. Go ahead, BZ. I gotta hear this.
So anyways, there's a scene where they claim that you can't listen to God because the sound is so pure it would be deafening.
Yes, it's from the movie Dogma.
There you go. Now, I'm not trying to bring in the movie or anything else.
No, I understand that.
Of that, or Matt Damon and the whole night. So please.
No, I get that.
Those who are yelling at me, quit doing that, because it's only that particular scene. And there's actually other references in that. And that is a distortion, because the so to say that the name of God and the frequency and sounding is so, you know, that's kind of a linear thing because God's outside of you and, you know, you're not pure enough and yada, yada, yada. Bullpucky, right? But because we haven't encountered, much as if when you first encounter love and the real frequency of love, you know, if you were looking, you know, kind of like a cartoony video, if the wind comes and people are rolling down the street because they get bowled over, because it's such an anathema to what linear love is over here, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So anyways, just to bring it back to where I was going off there, is that when you first start to glimpse and travel into the region of meaning, beginning to maybe sort of, it's a couple hundred miles down the road, meeting
right,
that resounding silence, it is a bit unsettling, because it's so powerful and so rich and so communicative and so vibrant and so colorful and so not at all passive in any way, shape, or form, and so all-encompassing and so transformative in the vastness and clarity of the communication that is actually conveyed. You know, there's definitely a bit of linear mind-blowingness, wouldn't you say, Lisa, that you know, can be described as coming along with that? Yes. Now, when you play with that,
more.
Huh?
More and more every day.
Right. But, and this is important, as you at least are aware of that, because of this is becoming more and more, beings are becoming more and more aware of this, just as they're becoming more and more aware of the true frequency of love.
Yeah.
They're becoming more and more aware of glimpsing, thinking about perhaps traveling down and meeting in the neighborhood of, you know, this resounding silence. It, you know, warms up, just to use this as a linear place, so that it warms up the muscles, it warms up our abilities, it warms up our senses to feel back into that group. It's a natural place. It's where we, you know, just as we hang out and are the frequency of love, it's truly what we are. We hang out and we are and create from, you know, that resounding silence.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's a, you know, linear words are really an inept description for it, but it's a pretty spectacular place to play.
Mm-hmm.
And a nanosecond of being immersed in the resounding silence is like going, okay, that's a funny analogy. So it's like going from an old black and white box TV with the rabbit ears, so it's kind of black and white, but you got those lines going across as well, to it transforms for a moment to HD, you know, thing, and you're like, wow, what is that? And you realize, you know, like it's butterfly wings, but you can see all of this, and you can feel the butterfly wing, you can feel the air displaced by the butterfly wing, right. And you can see all the colors that actually mirror off the butterfly wing and everything else, and then you kind of go back to maybe not the rabbit ear old box black and white, but maybe instead you're looking at a, you know, 1969 black and white television kind of a thing, you know, and then you move back and forth. But it's, so in that moment, if you kind of can picture, get that analogy and picture the one TV that I talked about and the other, you know, you're looking at it and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what is that? You know? Right,
that hurts. That hurts my eyes.
Because it's, yeah, and it's only because we're not familiar with it.
Yeah. I had that experience at a BJ's with one of those newfangled TVs. It really was so crystal clear. It was like I could see freckles on the people's faces, and after a while it hurt my eyes. I was like, it's almost too vivid. You know, it's that whole, that it's that fine line for me, apparently.
Well,
riding that edge.
But if you think about, that's a great actually reason you brought that up, because think about where the juxtaposition of where you are encountering that is in a massive distortion. Yeah. Right?
Right.
Am I frozen or are you guys frozen?
Yes.
So didn't you say you were at, what store did you say you were at?
I'm not sure.
BJ's.
Okay. So
where they have all the huge TVs playing.
Yeah. So it's a you know, like a tunnel or a room full of distortion on various levels.
Yeah.
And here is this resounding, to use this as a metaphor for this conversation. So you got this moment of resounding silence in all the distortion, and it's like, so the juxtaposition of the two.
Yes.
There's a shearing force.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's what I could write this down to, as a shearing effect of what is why the unsettling that I have. Okay.
Wow.
Well, I'd like to say then that it's important to, I mean, I haven't held myself in any sort of judgment, although I've been looking at a few judgy type things on myself. So,
you've been twinkle toeing around them. Because you feel different now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you feel, I mean, you look a lot different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do. What, then when we started?
Yeah.
Since you woke up, you weren't.
Your colors changed.
You had.
Your chronological age is reeled back a number of years. Your skin is different.
Okay, I'm confused. What are we talking about here? Just since we started?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, that's what I'm feeling, sensing.
Oh, I have some of that.
Geez, I gotta figure out how to bottle this stuff.
Forget all the Olay, man.
Figure out how to bottle that stuff right about now.
That's some good stuff.
Yeah, I guess so, right?
You're not noticing it, Lisa?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
I mean,
this
it's
is when I'll have to
dramatic.
go back and.
It's dramatic.
Okay, well, I guess this is. I always say that I'll go back and look at it, and then I don't.
You never
I don't look
start
at my
it.
videos, y'all. I just don't.
But you can hear it if you just strip the audio out and listen to it. It's dramatic. It's remarkable. Even if you're not into nuance, it's remarkable.
Well, here's the funny part about that is I still sit here feeling very kind of unsettled and just a little confused. So, but I mean, okay, what I just got about that is that on the level that is the most important, whatever it is that I was supposed to get, I got from this. Okay, wrap your mind around that one, folks. I that's all I got right there. That doesn't mean I'm any less confused in my 3D.
No, but your heart has gotten it in the Sheila in the chair, and Smarmy is out there tangoing up big time because he hasn't been able to tango much lately, and so he's out.
Wait a minute. You got to say that again because I couldn't hardly hear you, and I really want to hear what you're saying.
I was saying that's partly is because your heart has gotten, you said, okay, I just came in that I got what I was supposed to get in the most important part of that. And you said, yeah, but I'm still confused. And I'm saying that your heart got it. And this isn't accurate, but I'm going to use this as a placeholder. So the littler Sheila in the chair, the heart got it. And Smarmy's out there pirouetting around and tangoing because he hasn't been able to play a lot lately for a long time as far as he's concerned. So he's kind of unsettling. He's like if he was a skater, he's,
I see. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well,
answer yourself.
I'm going with what you said because my chest is really starting to move again now. So.
Good time.
I was just going to say, well, you tell us because I know what I felt, sensed, and picked up on an experience you could see with my linear eyes. And I said, you feel different, and you said, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel different. Yes.
You look lighter for sure. Maybe not exactly problem solved, but maybe not exactly a problem.
Well, on some level, it's really not a problem at all. So, I mean, I do realize Smarvy's trying to dance around this for some reason. I don't know, which I also don't understand. So.
Well, it could be a testing or a proofing.
Well, I'm not allowing anything to get the better of me. I just step back and take it easy, and not that, and that's something I guess I'm meant to share about that is I'm not. I do usually have a tendency to hop up on myself really big, and I've done that some here, but not terribly. Not like I've done in the past. Okay, so there's that part. And just allow things to unfold and reveal themselves to me. I wasn't really quite clear about all of this. Still not. I mean, pretty clear about a lot of it, but not all of it. And but as the week has unfolded, there's been more revealed. So this has been helpful.
Would it be fair to say that when we first, we did a whole little discussion before we started the camera, and we for the various reasons that the three of us discussed, we settled on this one first, to just do this one tonight. Would it be fair to say that when you met and encountered the title, that you first started to go to the distortion, that was a match, and the surprise was the resounding silence?
I'm not sure how to answer that, but in response to the question, I will say to you what I said to Lisa when we were taking our break. As I walked into the kitchen to get my cup of tea that I felt I might need for this conversation, I said to Lisa, I can feel this is going to be a big one for some reason. And so whether on one level or another, when we were discussing this, before you had the words out of your mouth, I was reading that one, and I had a feeling you were going to choose that one. Not that I had a bit of confusion as to what you meant by distortion, and because all I knew is that I was feeling distorted, and yet I've been trying to spend much more time on my own in silence, or whatever my laughing version of silence is in my head, to just allow things to come through, whatever. So I think I knew we were going to talk about this one, although again, I was a bit confused. So I'm not sure. Did that answer your question? I don't know if I.
Not really, but that's okay. So one of the other things, that just for clarity, that on the distortion. So if one is afraid, that's a distortion.
Right.
That is a distortion of your frequency vibration.
Right.
That is a distortion of that which is you and your true resounding energy signature vibration.
Okay.
If you're feeling small, that's a big ass distortion.
Right.
So the distortion, and not only in the context of this conversation, but in general, because what all of the beings in all, but we'll just keep it to this planet for a moment, what we're all up about, what we're all, the game is, what we're all actually unfolding right now, although we may label it as this or that, or, this political affiliation or that, or, we can bring it into really small, tight, narrow perspectives. But the whole big thing really is the owning of everything is energy, and we're kick-ass creator beings, and we're not small and we're eternal. So that's lots of ways to say the same thing, and that usually makes everybody get dizzy. And so anything that is since that is the focus, because that's how we get to anywhere else, right? So anything that is not in a frequency alignment with that is a distortion. Distortion of what? Well, distortion of all, to give the broad scope, distortion of the truth of who you are, the distortion of and this isn't accurate, but the reality of who you are, who and what you are. So those are distortions, and it's as a tool in your in your quantum toolbox, it's helpful to realize that and at least play with holding it that way, because then you can see that you are not the sad, you are not the afraid or small or angry or confused or unsettled. You are magnificent. And love, in resounding silence of clarity, your perception may be for momentary nanosecond locked onto the perception of the sad or those other things I just mentioned, and it's distorting your view, distorting your knowing, distorting your perception of the truth of who you are.
Well, that kind of brings up a couple of questions for me, but I don't know if it will fit in with what we're. I mean, it does, but it's so specific, actually, because part of what I've been looking at has to do with the truth of who I am in its totality. And some of what has presented for me particularly is beyond anything I've ever even halfway imagined, or in one's worst nightmare to try to think that they have been or are in some other realm. You know, it's one thing to have a portion of yourself presented to you that is a fairy or an elemental or, you know, an angel or whatever. It's something else quite completely. To have to be confronted with a portion of yourself that you're very clear has had a hand in destruction, huge swaths of destruction, and that has caused a bit of distortion in my frequency and at this moment of now, and and so I am actively choosing to try to view this through just that silence rather than, I mean,
Navigating it is difficult, yet it's all beautiful, because what you are giving voice to is the holding that is occurring for all.
Well, it's
and the compassion, and that's what the true love is, what real vibration of love is.
Well, that is a very real thing too, by the way, just so if anybody wonders about that. There were lots of beings that stayed very close during that entire experience, and the compassion and actually even with along with all that horror that I experienced, there was also a very real haunting beauty that I could feel and see in relation to all of that. I guess I don't know why it just felt like important since we were talking about that, because not all of what comes up to because I have experienced and I have shared with folks, my experiences of feeling myself in different realms, and I wasn't prepared for this particular one.
Yeah, and if it's all rainbows and fairies, then it's not holding, is it?
No.
Because
no.
all means all. That's why I often use the sentence all. Period.
And if we're all one, there isn't a single one of us here that doesn't have a part of us out there doing something we would not enjoy.
Yeah.
So nobody's left out of this holding process either.
Well,
No.
so here's metaphor, analogy, ascribe whatever linguistical derivative you want to it. So there's all that is, there's source and all that is. Mm-hmm. So this pool, this field, this energetic pot, however you want to hold that, the beginning, the end, the all, the unlimited, the never ending, the never beginning, all, the whole all right in the middle of all the all. And birthed from that, all source, however you want to hold it, source births from that a spark of source, a spark of pure potentiality, a spark of pure possibility, a spark of no thing, and with a kiss of, and wrapped totally in, enveloped in, always in perpetuity, forever, pure love, the energy frequency of pure love, just like you might a dandelion fluff, and that, in this metaphor, the spark goes forth and goes out, right, on its singularity of unity and trajectory to be and do, to experience, to gather data, to play, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're following this particular one, just as an example, goes forth and goes in and is experiential in different levels. It could be begins in no formness, no energetic bodiness, not even coalescing or a structure of energy yet, but just so we tend to think of humans with an in-body form, and then there's energetic beings, angels, kind of things like that. And in a tiny nano-esque nano squared particle, it's kind of accurate, except that you forgot all of the other millenniums of nanoparticles that go with it. So anyway, so this goes out and goes and plays and is on a trajectory, and could be a coalesced energy structure system, could be a interdimensional being, could be a higher dimensional being, but its energy frequency signature is the polarized opposite of the frequency of love. And for that being and that structured playing and being and doing what it's doing, it's its interpretation of love, because love is not only good things are love, and that's linear. It doesn't work that way. That's judgmental, because that's hierarchical, because that's leaving out the totality of what this being is. So anyways, just from a linear, this linear construct, from a linear perspective, this energetic construct takes on different forms, goes and plays in different things. And in that playing and being and trajectory and sending back, data and experiences for source going forth to no source, right? In all the myriad ways that occurs. Mm-hmm. This being is having a ball. And from a linear perspective, from a good linear perspective, right? Mm-hmm. That particular being that we're talking about is doing horrific ass shit from a linear, narrow focus perspective, not from any other perspective. Okay? Mm-hmm. And just as you might saying, well, someone's going and being, love and fluffy bunnies and angelic and rainbows and, harp song and all that kind of stuff, right? So those are perceptions, and there's nothing wrong or right. Again, people say, well, that's good or bad. We have to let go of that, because that's such a narrow focus and it doesn't bring the totality. So anyways, this being goes out and does all these different things, okay? Mm-hmm. And could spend quite a lot of time, right, doing that, because it plays in there, and then it may stay in that frequency that I'm just going to use this as a placeholder, embodiment, although it doesn't have to be embodiment to do that. Right. So it could be millennia that happens. And then it may shoot off and say, okay, I'm going to change my form, I'm going to change this, and it may move its trajectory slightly differently. So, might have some poker games with the horrific pals, but it's like thinking, yeah, not so much. And I'm like, that's not doing it for me anymore. Okay? Or another way to say is this being, if it's a little easier to grok, this being has many, 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 many lifetimes being a serious badass dude in the body, killing, raping, pillaging, the whole 9 yards, and doing it up big time. And keeps kind of having experiences within that particular embodiment of doing these things, and it's going, it's not really floating my boat anymore. This is, I'm feeling different. I'm choosing different. Okay. And so then comes in, and now is, again, from the linear perspective, embodiment, being and doing this white knight routine, and of what we consider light and love and all that kind of stuff. Right. So the energy signature, so in essence of this being is they're all the same. It's all part of, remember we started with the all came forward.
Well, as you were talking, I actually got a little something on this for myself. I had a bit of a judgment, I think, against what I was witnessing to. I had judged this as something not right when
That's not of love.
No.
Is this a big thing to play with? You bet. Is this difficult to grok on so many levels? You bet. Is this a real place where you start to even touch with a couple hundred gazillion light years of distance the idea of a multi-locational consciousness, you bet. But it's where we're all going. It's what we're all doing. That doesn't mean that we can't look at something as we kind of integrate and travel through all this that go, wow, and hold the perspective that I was into some bad shit. I did some bad shit. But we can hold that and realize that we choose differently now without the judgment of us being that bad shit. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, it does. Again, from the little Sheila 3D perspective that I was viewing this experience through. I mean, yeah, there's way more to it than, not just the programming and conditioning that I have on board here, but really just the smaller 3D perspective that I was viewing the entire experience through. Having this conversation now has helped me to step outside of that 3D experience and say, well, wait a minute. On a more expanded level. I mean, I was judging, first of all, what I was seeing, what I was feeling, what took place, and I think I got caught up on that part, that destruction, that, and what that means to my 3D human programmed conditioned brain, if you will, because there were other levels or portions. The language, it really fails, but there was other levels of me during this experience. Like I said, that I wept for hours at the incredible beauty that I was also that was accompanying this, and there was a part of me that was a bit also horrified at that part. I mean, that and that was a judgment too. It was all very, very confusing at the time, and again, I know that I cannot be the only one that has these kinds of experiences.
You're not. All beings, all in all beings. Mm-hmm. This is how we go through all of this. This is expansion. So let me play for a moment, if I can, with a little bit more of where I was going with that. Mm-hmm. Because I'm actually talking about, well, you or me, or at least there all the, 52 quadrillion of, yous, right? So given this being that's out there doing this stuff and making it so to make it more linearized, so in body keeps being reborn, reincarnation, choosing, different, okay? And you look, and then you, Sheila, in the linear chair there, are saying, well, you look at it, it was confusing and upsetting and gobsmacking and judgment and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so a question I may have for you is, did you then, or can you now, allow yourself to see the expansion that occurred, right?
Yes. Yes.
And the integration
Yes.
over, quad eons, if that's such a way to phrase it, a lot of eons, that occurs. And that's what expansion is all about. And because there is no end or beginning, and there is no limit, and there is not just form and no form, there is no thingness. So since we're so used to being linear, and some of us are more used to being more cranked down in our linear-esqueness than others, does it make your brain hurt? Yeah. Does it make your heart hurt? Yeah. But this is part of what is all going on, because we're not small. And the harder we hold on to that fight to be small, and that there is more perceiving of, the cracking of the shell of that, and maybe perceiving that there's pain or unsettling or horror or whatever at the judgment of projection of that. And if you can just for a moment play with noticing the expansion, with noticing the shift in trajectory, with noticing the choosing and the moments coming forward, and noticing, you could say for this crescendo, these moments of resounding silence that are opening up in the totality of all's energetic envelope, to use it as a one placeholder, linear-esque wise, that it lets us see that, because the all is leaping to another level of expansion, and the Big Bang, so to say, right, is booming anew, or for the very first time, in more radiance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We need to cherish, acknowledge, recognize, notice. It's all of those which are woefully inaccurate, and so much more, to get us to that point. That's part of the holding. So this is a kind of a side note. This is helpful to understand why it's not healing, it's holding. Because if someone's healing, they're, the badass doing the badass shit out there isn't something we want anywhere near us, because that's not healing. That's bad. That's evil. That's this. Yeah, but that's not holding, because that's not. We're never broken. That's not the truth of who we are. Is this big stuff to integrate? Yeah, it really is. And if you can play with it instead of, having this juxtaposition and wrestling and fighting with it, and that shearing force, because that's what causes the discomfort. That's what causes the unsettling. That's what causes the disquiet and the, it's actually heart-wrenching vehemence of disgust at ourselves that there is any possibility that this vileness that you partook in could be part of you.
Yeah,
Yet,
that was a big part of the judgment.
yes, okay. Yet look at it, and all of you and all of the all that were with you that you noticed, even if you can't quite grasp it all or understand it all, we're all there going through this whole process, revealing meaning, right? Being subject to one another with this, in that it was love was there. So, look at some of the phrases, euphemism we have, love is the only way. Okay, well, bingo. You got a really good example of that. So it's not just a fluffy bunny stuff. That's why I get a little linearly hot under the collar when people say, well, you only want to look at. No, actually, wholing and integration is looking at the totality and the fierceness of love and the beauty of the resounding silence, right? And that encompasses all, from the most sublimely delicious to the most exquisitely evil. Again, from linear voicing word perspectives.
Well, all of a sudden I'm having this feeling that my judgment that I immediately had of what I was experiencing, the judging of it as bad or wrong or evil or horrific. Because it was very clear. It was very clear that this was that it was me presenting to me for integration. Well, at least that's the feeling I had. And the experience started 2 days prior, and then so when it actually took place, when the long night of this took place, I had that judgment, but that I mean, I held that. I was very clear that it was a 3D little me that was holding this in a particular way. And yet the experience, while on one part, in one portion or one level of me, judged it as horrific, and for what I was feeling and seeing, as I said, I was held in a state of absolute love and compassion, and so the entire experience, it was it held both horror and beauty at the same time. It held love, compassion. I mean, there was nothing but love and compassion.
There wasn't reverence for all that was occurring and unfolding for you.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. There was no fear. There was absolutely no fear, because when all of this actually started 2 nights prior, I received an invitation, actually, I feel, Lisa and I've talked about this, to go into fear. It was very clear. I was very clear that it was parts of me that were presenting, and I was being invited to go into fear. And I was very adamant, no, I'm not going to do that. You're just a part of me. And I, just said out loud, I the whole Ho'oponopono, I forgive you, I love you, forgive me. And so I wasn't expecting what happened 2 nights later. But I think that was the precursor. Do you want to play? are you accepting of who you really are? And then when it, the rest of it took place. So I'm seeing now that it was more my judgment of this horrific thing that was me, because that was not the feeling. In other words, yes, I saw horror, but it wasn't the feeling that I had. Horror and fear was not a part of it. It just never came. There was a lot of crying, yes. There was a lot of and I can't even
atonement and at one-ment at the same time as you've experienced and hold into it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good way to put it, BZ.
Yes, because that is what it felt like. As though whatever, because I'm not clear on, what took place or anything.
No,
it doesn't matter. But atonement and integration, all of that. Yeah, that is, thank you for, wow, this conversation has been so helpful on so many levels.
So that judgment that, in yours with the disquiet and all that was, well, at least what was shown here tonight on camera, fairly mild, but it's a really beautiful illustration of the depending on how far each being decides to take it, and it's all a choice. The disquiet of the non-compassion, the discordance of the non-compassion, the jarring of the non-compassion, the shearing of the non-compassion, or the shattering of the and I just described layers of wherever one being might be. So compassion is an energy frequency. It's not only an emotion or something that you have compassion for, you emote it. It is actually, there's a few of these that are core frequencies, actual vibrational forces of, you could say, the universe. That's not accurate because that's small, but it's a good placeholder. And they're what will move us through all of this right now. So, comes to mind that I've said it many times, a whole lot of times off camera and many times on camera, that what is perceived as the totality of what will be unveiled and the richness, complexity, and sublimely delicious beauty of, and that's in a 360-degree perspective, is just a few shavings on the tip of an iceberg.
Based on what I experienced, yeah. Wow.
Well, thank you for integrating all of that.
Well, thank you both for your assistance in that.
So one thing I'd like to finish with, you're going to say, is anybody else to add? So I'll just jump in here. So if you think of a color wheel, is kind of what came to mind. So this, you can go, depending on how advanced the color wheel that you have is, or how nuanced, maybe a better way to say the color wheel is that you have. And so you could say, well, there's blue. Okay, well, there's 52 million shades of blue, actually. And they, so since I just said that it's 360 degrees, right? And I just said it's also few shavings on the tip of the iceberg of the totality. So if you think of that, so Sheila's thinking, oh, because that's where your kind of mind was playing in that hard, bad, evil, blah, 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 thing. There's more of that. Well, okay, sure. That's accurate. On what's being revealed, few shavings, tip of the iceberg. So, okay. But because we're the color wheel, so you're only on one segment of that color wheel. And the totality, the wholing of that. So this isn't quite as far as I wanted to go, but I'll go further in a minute. So you could say at the same, so if that point, just using this, it was the circle, right? So that point on this analogy of the color wheel was this bad, scary, ugly, vile thing, right? So that's a line. So you go to the balancing point of that over here is this magnificent, brilliant, bright, beautiful, sublimely, orgasmically yummy thing here. And again, both of those. So the exquisite it's very hard to do this because the language is so inaccurate, and there are many who don't grok the inaccuracy of the language, so they go to the linear, I'll just say it, plain bullshit of what the language comes, and they totally miss what I'm trying to paint here. But so maybe I won't try. But so in that circle, there we will go through all. This is the holing, and each being as they choose to have that complete polarization, to have that physical embodiment, and many will not, because they really, for whatever reason, and some may think, well, they can't look at that evil. Well, okay, yeah, but just as many, and I can assure you a whole lot more, will not look at that beauty. To look at that love, the scope of that beauty and the scope of that love, remember, just using this wheel, is terrifying. Because where they are in their frequency, and the neighborhood that they're so used to, accustomed, and fighting to stay in, is such an anathema to that beauty. Just to use an horrific beauty. Okay, fine, whatever. Totally inaccurate language, but what's what we got? The distortion that they feel when looking at that beauty, because it is them, yet they cannot see that. It's kind of like a reverse of the distortion, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So all beings will choose, if in these moments they choose to go with that holing and this physical embodiment at really just a linear placeholder, at this level at which they are individually, they are doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I try to break it down really base linear. It's making my stomach hurt trying to do this because 99.9 tenths of me is going, anyway, so you're a being, you've had different experiences, you're feeling this, or you have a knowing that, yes, absolutely, you are committed and will do whatever it takes. Absolutely. And this is not about you or about anybody else. It's just you, right? And you will do this physical embodiment. So you do it, physical embody, all of you is imploding into you, all this holding. And you, on the color wheel metaphor, you visited the totality of the color wheel, but maybe the color wheel is actually this thick and you've gone through this depth of it. So at this level, which, which with 5D being the very, 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 very palest with, because you're actually that much is covered. Again, these are all linear bullshit words, but 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th kind of a thing, right? And so, you go around the multiverses block a few more billion spins and because you're eternal, because, like you're doing this for eternity. Does that make sense? So yes, on a paper thin linear level, the metaphoric color wheel of all of those ranges of from despicable to sublimely delicious, right? And all circumferential variations thereof, right? Mm-hmm. You do it on that paper thin level and layer. You've gone through that much of the layer in this embodiment, right? And physical embodiment, and then you're going and you're playing and you're creating and you're on trajectories and you're a creator being, right? And then there's more. So that's how I wanted to finish up, and why not? Since I think I'm already blowing a few minds, and I just wanted to kind of have this slight side note addendum that just like the new earth is not something to be waiting for and somewhere's out there, you actually are all going through the physical embodiment process right this very moment. You are physically embodying the totality of yourself in these moments of now. The shit's happening right this minute.
Yes it is.
It sure is.
In case some people hadn't kind of grokked to that, I just thought I'd throw that as a side note. I thought I'd throw that, but that's a whole other conversation.
Thank you.
yeah. Well, but it is a conversation. That's for sure. It is true. It is happening, and all kinds of stuff gets noticed about it too. Because I think you said something about in regards to timelines a little earlier too, and Lisa and I discussed that. I think that might have happened again this morning, or sometime in the last day or so. At least over here for me, anyway. So, yeah.
Yes, there's been geometric storms with timeline jumping, and these are whole other conversations, but more really apt to characterize it as whole realities being collapsed, cascading effect of whole tranches of realities totally being collapsed, not just in each. So there's 3 of us I'm pointing at when I look at my computer screen, not just on each individual level, but on collectives and collectives and collectives and collectives and collectives and collectives. And
right.
So wholesale cascading tranches of realities collapsing. So you could, if I was read dematerializing, read
Right.
imploding back in.
Well, that makes sense. Especially like I said, in light of what I experienced, I can see where that would be.
So the few who stayed to the very end and going, I had her.
I know.
What are they talking about now?
This is how we roll.
This is how it all rolls. It's how it's transmitting it all out, and it puts it into the energetic envelope of the all, as well as this particular energetic envelope.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that BZ doesn't have anything else to add because she said she was going to add it right then. So, Lisa, do you have anything you would like to add to this particular energetic envelope before we close it?
No.
Are you certain? I was playing with that one that wanted to come forth, but okay.
Well, something told me listen and see.
Okay.
But I didn't. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. Just want to make sure.
That's another conversation.
So we will have all the usual things in all the usual places. And of course, if you have any comments or you would like to, reach out to any one of us, all the information on how to do that is also in the show more section of this video. And hey, subscribe if you feel so led. And till next time.